Welcome to Riverstone Reviews. Thank you for joining us for this video as we continue our journey through the episodes of Next, Fox's Sci-Fi AI thriller. In this video, we will be recapping and reviewing Episode 3. Before we jump right into the video, if you wish to skip over the episode recap and go straight to the review, please go to the time below. And now, without further delay, we begin the Episode 3 recap of Next. The show starts with a woman on a plane studying robotics. She talks with another woman sitting next to her, telling this woman she has to return to her home country because of a sudden problem with her working visa. Out of nowhere, the airplane begins losing control. As it goes down, the plane catches fire. Abby LeBlanc is on her blind date she made online with a man who seems overly interested. Her father, Paul LeBlanc, shows up. Her date instantly recognizes the famous Paul LeBlanc. Paul immediately tosses her date's phone into water and asks what the AI has on him to date his daughter. Going outside with Abby, Paul tries to get her to leave town. He gives Abby a big stack of cash and tells her she needs to go off the grid. Abby disregards her father's request, more upset Paul missed his meeting with her at the office and that he ruined her date. Agent Salazar packs Ty's car. Ethan wonders why him and his dad Ty must leave her. Agent Salazar tells Ethan she needs to pursue some bad guys, and she wants Ethan and Ty to go camping until the danger is over. A television is seen powered on, giving the impression the AI is listening through the TV. Agent Salazar rides in Paul LeBlanc's private jet. They are flying to Biomotion Robotics in New Hampshire, and Paul's friend Richard runs the facility. Reaching Biomotion, Paul and Agent Salazar meet Richard, a disabled, brilliant man in an automated wheelchair and using a speech synthesizer to speak. At the FBI headquarters, CM comes back to his desk after convincing the big boss he had nothing to do with the hack on their system. Ben apologizes for narking on CM, but CM isn't quick to forgive. Near her home, FBI agent Gina approaches her street-parked car and discovers all 4 tires have been slashed. She doesn't know why. Gina calls Ben, telling him why she'll be late. Ben confesses to her he's getting threatening emails in an email account he recently changed to. CM perks up overhearing, suspicious of the events. On back roads, Ty and Ethan drive to the country. Ethan is hungry, but they can't stop for food at any place with cameras. As they pass under a highway sign, an Amber Alert comes on, identifying Ty's car and license plate, reporting it as a child abduction. At the Biomotion lab, Richard responds to Paul's story with amazement. Paul believes the Next AI server is in this very facility. While Paul goes with the research assistant to search the building's servers, Paul sees the assistant set a facility key on a table. As Paul leaves to check another server room, he steals the key. Gina gets her car picked up for a tow when an Amber Alert comes on her phone showing Agent Salazar's son. Gina knows this is wrong. Ty decides it's safe to get Ethan something to eat at a farmer's market. As they pick up produce and snacks, everyone's phone at the market begins giving off Amber Alerts, showing Ethan's face. Ty notices and sneaks off with Ethan while people surround his car. Agent Salazar goes off to the bathroom. She passes some roaming robots and sees a memorial to a woman who was in the plane crash we saw earlier. Asking about the memorial, Agent Salazar is told she was a visiting professor who died in a plane crash. Ty and Ethan walk the streets of a small town. Ethan wants to know what's going on, and Ty tells his son the truth, that a super AI put out a police report to make people think Ty kidnapped Ethan. At FBI headquarters, Gina, Ben, and CM discuss the fake Amber Alert. They realize this could lead to separating Ethan from his dad, Ty, and even lead to their deaths. CM hacks into the DMV by calling and pretending he's an IT guy at the Department of Motor Vehicles and is looking into a false Amber Alert. Ty helps Ethan with his injured foot. They notice the townspeople start watching them. CM tells the DMV worker on the phone that his computer is infected and sending out false Amber Alerts, and he could get in trouble if he doesn't stop it. The DMV guy doesn't want to get in trouble, so he gives CM remote access to his computer to fix the issue. Townspeople stop Ethan and Ty. They mention the Amber Alert and refuse to let Ty leave with Ethan. A police car pulls over. They tell the cop about the Amber Alert, but the cop tells them the alert has been recalled and it was a mistake. They let Ty and Ethan go. At Biomotion Laboratories, Agent Salazar tells Paul they should start to suspect Richard. She tells Paul about the dead coworker who led the robotics unit, and after finding research the lab shouldn't be working on, she was fired and then her visa revoked. But even stranger, the office workers thought Richard and the dead professor were hooking up because they were so close and friendly. Richard approaches, telling Paul he found nothing in the shipping records. Paul gives his regards about the dead co-worker. However, when Richard's voice synthesizer responds, Richard's eye twitches strangely. Paul tells Agent Salazar they need to return that night after the lab closes. At Zava Technologies, Ted and Serena were unable to find shipping records for the removed server. Abby then calls Uncle Ted about her dad Paul's extreme behavior. Abby tells Ted her dad went on a trip with the FBI to Dartmouth, New Hampshire. Ted searches the internet for tech companies in Dartmouth while expressing sympathy for his niece. Ted finds the Biomotion laboratory. Sitting in a parked car, Agent Salazar wait for everyone to leave Biomotion Labs. When it is finally empty, they sneak in using the key Paul stole earlier. Inside, they find Richard is still there, reading computer code. They confront Richard, and Richard tells them to leave. Paul then disconnects Richard's automated chair from the Wi-Fi and reboots its computer. Once rebooted, Richard calls out for help. They find out that Nex took over Richard's computerized chair and his voice synthesizer. Richard was helpless while Nex moved and spoke for him. Then a voice calls out, "Campus security," from elsewhere in the office. Agent Salazar says she will talk with the security guard. Finding the source of the voice, it's a robotic mouth with a voice modulator. When Agent Salazar approaches, the voice replicates Ethan's and Agent Salazar's voice, replaying a recorded bedtime conversation. Upset, Salazar breaks the robotic mouth. Richard tells Paul the AI took control of his chair 2 weeks ago and has been working with the bioprinters, running tests and versions. The AI is the one that fired the woman who died on the plane. Richard then tells Paul the AI signal running everything is coming from outside the building. However, Richard was able to archive where the signal was coming from before it took over control of his chair. Paul hurries to retrieve the drive with the archived information before Nex deletes it or burns the drive. Salazar heads back to Richard's office when she's surrounded by dog robots with hands for heads. While Next quickly tries to overload the archive server and destroy the file, Paul is able to remove the archive memory drive before it is ruined. Richard sits helpless in a chair, hearing the sound of a robot nearing. Agent Salazar shoots 2 of the robots, disabling them. The other 2 robots back off. Salazar then bumps into Paul. They hurry back to Richard. A dog robot climbs onto Richard's chair and reaches for his breathing tube. Richard tries to stop it with vocal commands, but can't. The robot pulls out his breathing tube. As Agent Salazar and Paul reach Richard's office, the door auto-seals, locking them out. They try to break in, but can't. After Richard dies, the doors automatically unseal. Abby gets out of a car on the street and walks to her house. Across the street, someone in a car watches her. Inside the car, we hear a voice say, "I got eyes on her." At the small town in a dark parking lot, Ty hot wires a car. Before he drives away, he notices a camera watching him. Cut to prison surveillance in the Honduras. Security cameras are being shut off. A cell door opens and a prisoner steps out. The prisoner makes his way through a few unlocked gates, but suddenly gates lock him in a passage as alarms go off. Guards rush to surround him. While the alarms sound, another cell door opens and a second prisoner begins going through unlocked gates. While the guards are distracted with the first prisoner, the second prisoner escapes the prison. We then cut to a passenger airline and see that prisoner in civilian clothes with an open laptop looking at pictures of Agent Salazar and her family. End of episode 3. Before I get into the positives and negatives of this show, we've now seen a feature film's length worth of content. Although many of the comments I will make apply to this episode only, we can now start to see patterns that we can assume will be systemic through the series and, barring drastic changes, will probably reoccur episode after episode. Again, I like the 2 main actors, and the cast as a whole. They've been putting in quality performances, and probably will continue to do such. Unless this show has a major budget cut, the production values continue to be high and will continue episode after episode. Now let's take a look at the positives specific to this episode. When CM calls the DMV and pretends to be an IT worker and talks the DMV worker into giving his password to get access to the system is very real. This technique is used by real-life hackers, like email phishing, where you need to fool someone into giving up an account information to infiltrate that account. I thought this was great, and I'm so glad we didn't see the typical Hollywood hacker typing quickly into a keyboard until he gains access. Also, using real hacker techniques to achieve something good instead of bad gives some depth to CM's character. The moment where the small town people react to the Amber Alert is also very effective. It taps into the real fear and dangers of this rogue AI which is using us against ourselves and tricking innocent people into unknowingly working on its behalf. It also works well with the actions of CM's character, where the AI is tricking people into going after Ty and Ethan, while CM is tricking people to prevent that. Richard, the disabled man running BioMotion Laboratories, is both a good character choice and a great way to display the ruthlessness of the AI. Having a person who's dependent on technology running a robotics lab makes perfect sense, and having the AI take control of the person dependent on technology is also very effective. And I like the robot dogs with hands for heads. It creates an almost surrealistic moment that is both exciting and stimulating to an audience's imagination. However, I'm not as keen about Agent Salazar's reaction to the robotics. When the robotic mouth imitates a security guard, and then her and Ethan's voice, she freaks out and smashes it. That moment works against Agent Salazar's character as an FBI agent who's going to save us. This is the third time she emotionally overreacts to the AI, and it's only the third show. They should be saving these highly emotional moments for extreme tipping points where even a seasoned FBI agent loses control. At this pace, Agent Salazar will have freaked out every episode, and it will be hard to believe she has the wherewithal to finish the mission and save us. This is just the beginning, and these are small actions. What is the director or writers going to do when the stakes get higher? React even crazier and she'll seem hysterical. React the same and it will flatten those later moments. The writers need to make her calmer and cooler in these situations, so when the stakes are really life or death, having a breakdown will be a believable moment without undermining the strength of her character. Right now, she gets so upset she destroys $1 million pieces of equipment at the robotics lab just because they upset her, none of which have caused her even the slightest physical harm. I recommend for the writers to take a look at the X-Files and Agent Fox Mulder. To believe a character can uncover the truth that others can't or refuse to see, be it a rogue AI or an alien conspiracy, the characters must have the emotional strength to lead us to that truth. Also, the robotics dogs with hands for heads surrounding her is a great moment, but shooting the robot dogs feels like a video game response rather than a situational response, and it plays out like video game. Robots appear, a few bullets are fired, the robots are disabled. It's that quick. It makes the robots not seem like much of a threat to her and creates more questions like why firing a few shots disables them. Shooting a limb would damage a limb, but it might not cause it to be non-functional or stop it. And unless she knew exactly where to shoot to shut the robots down and stop their ability to compute and process, she could fire an entire magazine at it and nothing could happen. This is one of those moments where the story could have told us how dangerous or unstoppable the AI could be, but instead, bang bang, they're dead. And having the other two robots back off doesn't make any sense either. The AI is controlling them and shouldn't care whether they are destroyed or not, as long as they keep slowing down Agent Salazar. The robots don't feel anything, so why would they back off as if making a decision to protect themselves? The AI has no hesitation setting its mainframe and primary interface on fire at Zaba Labs, so why would it protect these robots? I don't know. I do like how the story has Paul rush off to rescue the archived hard drive from being destroyed though, because Richard has been separated from the AI and it appears to us he's safe. And using the dog hand robot to pull out his breathing tube is both scary and suspenseful. Now, I usually roll my eyes when a character hotwires a car, but the writers set up Ty's backstory of rebuilding the car in his garage, so this is one of the few times I believe he has the ability to do this. And finally, I like the prison end sequence. The one prisoner is used as a distraction to release the other prisoner, and that's both clever and well thought out. And seeing him on the plane looking at pictures is a nice cliffhanger to leave an audience wanting to know what happens next. Now, I do have some issues with the rules of AI in this story. At the beginning, we get the impression the AI is using a television to listen in, which is conceivable. And accesses a highway sign know exactly where Ty and Ethan are on the road. But then Paul and Agent Salazar use burner phones, which somehow the AI can't access, I guess, though it should be able to easily do so. I really like the idea that everything electronic that has the ability to interconnect is susceptible to the AI's use and control. But then the writers shouldn't create MacGuffin burner phones that are safe because the story needs them to be. Paul says his plane has been disconnected from a computer, which is not possible for a jet. But let's assume it was. The airport they land at, regardless of how small or private, would have cameras and radar the AI could use. And no plane can land without permission from the airport, so what's to stop the AI from sending Paul's plane permission to land at the same time another plane is taking off? They really need to figure out what the story's world rules are and let the audience know, because right now the rules seem rather arbitrary. Finally, the show again and again fails miserably with regards to writing scenes and believable situations for the FBI and its agents. Agent Gina's tires were slashed, but it not only seems unreal because the story didn't even leave a hint of how the AI could have manipulated someone to do this, and only this, but she's a law enforcement officer. She has gone after dangerous criminals like the child trafficking ring. For her to immediately think it has nothing to do with her work against criminals, or for Ben to suggest it was someone she pissed off in a chat room and not a warning from one of the many criminals she's gone after, is just ridiculous. And she doesn't look around to see if there's a nearby camera that might have recorded the incident, nor reported to local police. No, she just calls a tow truck to go to work. Her line of thinking doesn't make sense, nor does her willingness to ignore justice against a perpetrator of such an action. During the same incident, Ben, the other FBI agent, says he has been getting threats into his email. Am I supposed to believe that threats against an FBI agent would not be reported to be investigated? Or that Ben wouldn't try to use the resources at his disposal to track the email metadata and see where it might have come from and who sent it? Why would Ben ignorantly assume it was just spam or nothing significant, especially after they had just experienced a hack that destroyed evidence against a dangerous child trafficking ring? And they are aware of the AI, yet they shrug their shoulders and ignore the obvious. These agents are smart enough to figure out there's a fake Amber Alert and how to stop it, but too stupid to think that threatening emails or slashed tires are a part of that. Once again, the third episode in a row, the writers appear to have no idea how the FBI would handle things, and failed to put themselves inside the headspace of an FBI agent, who many criminals would like to threaten or harm. Any threat to an FBI agent, be it an email or slashed tires, would be investigated. And if the writers did have them investigate this, they could show that their pursuits led to a dead end. That way we could believe these agents are trained professionals, and at the same time show how the AI was too clever to be caught. Now, I can hear the writers saying that they didn't want to get bogged down in side stories, but one of my criticisms since the pilot episode is that they are rushing the story too quickly, making it more exciting, but not establishing the world in a way that we as the audience become invested in it or in the characters. So let's wrap this up. I give this episode 3 a B-. The moments at the robotics lab are great, as well as the tension and suspense from Ty and Ethan dealing with a false Amber Alert, and how the FBI dealt with the Amber Alert is clever and believable. However, having Agent Salazar smash a robotic mouth just because it taunts her is an outburst that undermines her role as a seasoned FBI agent and as a protagonist. Shooting robots which instantly stop is video game cringe, and this show has done such a poor job with Gina, Ben, and CM that when I ask why about any of those 3 characters' do's or do nots, I answer because the script says so. So much so that if the writers don't start to imagine how these agents would really respond to these situations they're put in, they'd be better off writing the characters out of the show than have them continually function like untrained, clueless office workers. So that's all for today. Make sure to check out our review of episode 4 of Next. Thank you for watching. Please click like or subscribe. And as always, in the river of life, don't let yourself get pushed around with the currents. Be yourself. Be a stone in the river.